Hello everybody and welcome back. I'm Count Christo and this is part 5 of our MEIOU and Taxes 2.52 tutorial series. Today we're looking at the Royal Court and the education system. These are two key, new and very interesting systems that are really quite easy to manage once you know how, and then there's a few ways in which you can get a little bit more technical. And we're going to look first at the simple way of interacting with them, what they do, and then we're going to touch on a few advanced tips and tricks to using these to the maximum effect. These are another of those systems that you can really ignore while playing MEIOU and Taxes. They run as a simulation in the background, but if you understand them and you can make use of them right, then it's even better. So, let's first look at the Royal Court. The grandeur and prestige of a country is oftentimes inseparable from the splendour of its royal court. Having a royal court that is splendid and gives you great prestige internationally grants many bonuses. And we'll look at what those bonuses are later in the video, but for now let's look at how you get different court levels. First off, how do I know my current court level? Well, you hover over here. We have an impressive court, level 4. Pretty good, eh? This bonus is actually wrong. I'll show you the correct one in a moment. We have a current court level of 54.345%. That's a sliding scale from 0 to 100%. And last year, it sadly declined by 0.313. We have a current court wealth of 159, a current yearly funding of 8.878, and a yearly bonus from capital buildings of 0. So what do these numbers mean? Court level is pretty simple. When you have a court level of between 0 and 15%, you have a level 1 court. Between 15 and 30, level 2. Between 30 and 45, level 3, and so on. Between 85 and 100, you have a magnificent level 6 court, which gives truly stupendous bonuses. I apologize for the scrolling. So, we're currently funding it by 8 ducats. Let's say we wanted to go up a bit. We can increase the annual funding by, let's say, 1, 2, 3 more ducats. Now we're funding it by 11 ducats a year. Now, there is a complicated calculation that involves a certain amount of your court wealth being taken and spent on increasing the court level each year. And then, of course, your court wealth is also topped up by your current yearly funding. Your current yearly funding is displayed, by the way, in the Public Services and Toll Loss section. If you want to see specifics about how much you're spending, go to the good old Stability and National Quality window and hover over discretionary expenses. Right now we're spending 0.98 ducats per month on the court. So you can do lots of maths, work out exactly how much money you want to give the court, and then set them to have that much each year. But that sounds really boring, so let's not do that. Let's ask our advisors for help. We're going to set a target, and then the AI is going to automatically spend the amount of money that is required to reach that target each year. Now, there are two things the AI will not do, and it's very important to know that they will not do it. First off, if we select we want level 6 court, the AI will not launch a pop-up saying, "You mad genius, what on earth are you doing? Why are you trying to spend 101.5 ducats a year when you don't even make that in a year?" So be careful. Setting this too high will bankrupt your entire country. Let's set it at a more reasonable level, like 3. That's going to cost 8.8. That was what the AI was targeting at the beginning of the video. Now, what the other thing it won't do is when you conquer more land, your court and education expenses will rise, because the amount they cost is based on a complicated calculation that takes into account how many pops there are in your whole nation. So, if you conquer lots of new land, bear in mind that your court and education expenses are likely to increase. What they also won't do, 3 things, I lied, is if you set it to level 3, or let's say level 5 in this case, they have a missing court endowment. When you go back, they will fire an event saying, you're paying the right amount per year to maintain level 5, but right now we need a lump payment of 120 in order to get up to that level of court. You can pay 50% of it, or you can pay 50% extra to get there even faster. You can pay the amount, or you can pay half the amount, or you can just say this is unnecessary. So remember, setting the yearly amount to the right level is not all it needs doing. Now let's look again at the advisors. We can see that they're trying to go for a court level 5, brackets 70. That means they're targeting 70%. If you were paying attention earlier, you will remember that to get a level 5 court, you actually only need 60. So if you want to give that manual stipend, you might want to manually decrease that level by a few points. Let's target 61 to be safe. You want to go a little bit above the boundary line that you're targeting, because when you conquer new land, a sudden downswing in the size of the court while your funding catches up can see you dropping down a court level. The other thing that affects the court is the presence of capital buildings. If we look over here at Mamluks al-Qaira, we can see that they have a capital rank 1, which has a yearly maintenance of 30 ducats. That actually isn't really a yearly maintenance of 30 ducats, because 15 of those 30 ducats get given directly to your court. So having these capital buildings is actually less expensive than one might seem. To give you a very quick glance at the numbers, what the court actually does each year is lose 5% of its current court level and spends 10% of its current court wealth. If that court wealth spent is great enough to both counteract the 5% of court level you lost and do more, then your court level will trend upwards. If not, it will trend downwards. That's how the court works. Now, let's take a look at education. Education is a little bit more complicated, and you fire all these events, by the way, by the state, interactions, the court, and education. Education is a little bit more complicated because you have to interact with universities. We have one just here that we'll be using as an example. So, once again, we have our education level, our change last year, our total endowment, but now we also have funding from two different sources, the church and the state. We'll talk about the church at the end of the video, and the topic of religion will be the main feature of our next tutorial. So, using the advisors to target certain levels is exactly the same, but there are more levels, in this case 9. If you are between 0 and 10, you are level 1, 10 and 20, you are level 2, 20 and 30, level 3, etc, etc. There are different boundaries. To get to level 7, you have to get to 65 as opposed to 60. To get to exceptional, you have to get to 80. And then to get to level 9, you have to get to 100. The education level can, I think, exceed 100, but it would be exorbitantly expensive to get it that high. Once again, just ask advisors for help and then target the level that matches the bonuses you're happy to spend to get. Remember, it won't tell you that you're spending far, far too much money. Keep an eye on your balance sheet and only spend on the education what you can afford. Remember that in MEIOU and taxes, money is much more valuable compared to monarch points than it is in vanilla. So what may seem like an obvious choice, spend to get education level 9 and get that crazy good education bonus, may often actually be a bad idea when, rather than getting 5% cheaper admin tech, you could have built a huge industrial program that generated you far more in the long run. That is the basics of education, but remember, there's that thing about universities. So, how universities work, and you can see this in data about our students and universities, is they affect your national education multiplier. The national education multiplier usually is between about 1 and about 2. It can go over 2. You get 1 when no one is in school. That's no good. You get 2, or even higher than 2, when everyone is in school. Now, who has to go to school? Why? The upper classes, of course, as things should be. 5% of your population need to go to school, and if you can get all 5% of those if all of that 5% to go to school, you'll get a 2 times education multiplier. What does that multiplier do? What it does is, it makes it so that the money you spend on education has twice the impact it would normally have. So investing in building universities, rather than just spending more money on education, can be an excellent way to more cost effectively raise your education level. Right now we can see that a very small number of people are without university access. Almost all of our upper class pops are actually studying. If we look at this local university, it gives us 20% domestic student slots and of upper local class and +3. What that means is we get +3 slots, that's room for 10,000 people to study, and room for 20% of the local upper classes. That means you want to prioritize building these university buildings in provinces that have lots of upper class population. But bear in mind, if you build them in cities, they will also be quite a lot more expensive. They do have nice base urban gravity and art power modifiers, but also bear in mind that universities, especially the higher level ones, will increase the monthly autonomy change and unrest in your provinces. It turns out when people get to learning, they're not always keen to just submit to the absolute state's will. And that's how universities work. That, in a nutshell, is the court and education system in MEIOU and taxes. But, lest you think I shortchanged you with my promise earlier, here are all of the modifiers of the different education and court level bonuses. As you can see, when you start getting up to high levels, they can be truly impressive. Having a level 6 court is dramatically more powerful than most idea groups in the game, and likewise, having a level 9 education gives you a whopping 25% technological cost reduction and 80% institution spread. However, note that in education, not all is positive. You lose stability increase interval. That means you gain a positive stability increase interval, which means it will take longer for you to earn stability points, and you gain autonomy in all of your province. Again, an educated populace is not always willing to submit to the state's whims. That was a look at education and court in MEIOU and taxes, but we didn't touch on that church funding. In the next episode, we'll take a look at religion, church influence, piety, conversion, and minorities. Looking forward to seeing you then. Thanks very much for watching.